Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
What is up, everybody? It's Molina Mike here. Day number 1 of the Mosconi Cup is starting today, and I am beyond pumped to get this rolling. We got one guest already in the green room. We might have one more. I'm just waiting to see if he's going to show up or not. But anyhow, let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me all right. Doing it remotely out here from the venue. Not the venue. I'm here in the hotel room, but staying on site at the resort. So it's real nice. It was a fun day yesterday. We're going to talk about the press conference. We're going to talk about the day 1 matchups. So we're going to dive on into it. But before we get going, let me bring on the guest of honor. You might know him from the – golly, he's going to kill me for not knowing the name. Okay, so it's Chalking Up, something like that. I'm already fucking butchering it. Dell, help me out here. What?
Well, it's a nice play on words. It's called Talking English. So not only
Talking English. God damn, man, I wasn't even close.
The thing that you always give me the most grief about, but also just putting a spin on the industry. That's a little bit of English.
Look, you do a great job. I've always been a fan of your commentary. I've been a fan of mainly. I'm just scared to tell you that I don't like it because you're 8 foot tall. So even if I didn't like it, I wouldn't be honest with you. So
how about now, Mike? What do we think about now?
Who are you rooting for, Dell? Because you're European, man. You live here in the States. You might as well be like Mika or Thorsten.
I was born in the UK, but recently just got the US citizenship, so I'm kind of on the fence, mate. Honestly, nice. I feel like a little bit patriotic because I don't know for anybody else that's gone through the ceremony of naturalization. It is the most patriotic thing you'll ever do. And it kind of gives you a little bit of goosebumps, for the people that are, coming to this country for all the right reasons, to celebrate independence and their freedom from, any other place.
Absolutely.
It's unlike any other country like that. But coming from the UK, I'm somewhat privileged from, a first world country but it still resonated with me. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit, I was a little bit teary during the ceremony.
Look, that hits home being a second generation American. We might have lost Dell. My Momo and Wello came over here from Mexico, and so we take a lot of pride in being here on this side and all that comes with that. And so today is a unique day. I'm born here in the States, but I'm probably rooting for Team Europe. As you guys know, I usually bet on Team Europe as well. Dell is I don't know what the hell is going on with Dell's internet. We'll see if he comes back in and we'll let him on in. But Paul says Europe's still over USA by a mile. Let me know who you guys think is going to win and also what the score line is going to be. Let's see if Dell's back. Dell, are you with us still?
Sorry, mate. I dogged it. I got a phone call on Messenger. I don't know how to turn it off.
Rookie mistakes, though. You always got to put it on airplane mode. Although, speaking of, let me do that myself now that I'm saying that.
Yeah, so you've been reminded now. You're like, damn it. All right.
Look, I've done that plenty of times, and then it messes with my audio, and then it just throws me way off. So before we jump into day 1, I want to talk about the Hall of Fame banquet. Shane is still doing his speech right now. He's been at it all night. So no, I want to get your thoughts. It was my first time attending a Hall of Fame induction. What about you, Dell?
I was lucky enough to go to one in Steinway Billiards back in, I think it was 2017, after the World Straight Pool that happened.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
I'm listening to you.
But to see like this kind of 3-way and knowing all 3 of them was a really nice kind of treat. I did not expect Shane to take his speech, as Raymond said, a race to 120.
Yeah, that's actually pretty funny.
It went hill.
Yeah, it went the distance, no doubt. And the funny part is, so they do the like Freddie was doing his intro, and then Shane came down, and by where we were sitting at, we were talking for a second. I overheard him. One of the matchroom guys asked him, hey, have you practiced your speech? And he's like, yeah. And he says, well, about how long is it? And he says, about 20 minutes. So that and after about the like eighth, I'm gonna tell you a short story. I was like, oh man, and I don't know about you, man, but I was holding it in for a while, like from the beginning of the speech. So like a lot of other people, we were just darting as soon as it was over to get out of there to go head to the boys' room. But
That was
uh,
like a stadium restroom at the end of that thing.
no kidding. Hey, by the way, so shout out to Mike and Billiards Digest as well. They were giving these away. I'm going to get Shane to sign probably about a half dozen or so, and we'll send them out. We'll figure out a way to get them away to you guys for that. On the note as well, before we jump on into Shane's speech, I want to talk about Pinozo. Listen, he's my guy. Everyone knows that one got me a little teared up. I'm not going to lie. Seeing him inducted and all that he's done, and just the amount of respect that he gets from the players. I mean, me personally, I just admire the hell out of him and got the utmost respect for him. What were your thoughts on Mike getting inducted as well, Dell?
I've obviously known of Mike, but what was a real eye opener was just to see what an incredible impact, and maybe it's some of my own wrongdoing, but I didn't realize just how far back his history goes with the game of billiards.
Over 40 years.
Yeah, because I only found American Pool in like 2012. So you kind of come over and he was a figurehead then, with Billiards Digest. We talked and, I'd met him at tournaments and things like that. But when you see how deeply rooted he is in the billiards community across everything, and not only did he, he's kept the Hall of Fame going. So it's only right, in my opinion, that he gets that. Is it meritocracy?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm probably butchering it too. Don't worry about it. So
meritocracy. Yeah,
it's well deserved. Yeah,
Very
he's poured his time, his money, his heart and soul into it, and just seeing what it meant to him when he was giving his speech, that mutual respect, like I said, but more importantly, just his love for the game. There's like a few times, and I don't know if I've ever told Mike this story, but there's like a few times when I don't want to say like if Starstruck's the name, but it might have been. I remember being at the Rio when I first met Pinozo and he's tall like you, and he comes up to me and says hello, and I was like, just because I Billiards Digest was the plug, you know what I mean? And so
yeah.
for someone who just like ate, slept, and breathed pool, I've always admired him from afar. Never thought I'd be able to work with him the way that I do. And I'm certainly privileged to be able to do that. And we're going to have Mike on a few times throughout the week as well. But big congratulations to him. It was, like I said, well-deserved. And just seeing like all the legends who just got a lot of love for him, like Jeanette and Mika and Thorsten and, Kim Davenport, and just like the list goes on of these legends who just thoroughly appreciate what he did for their career. And he's done so much in the background as well, behind the scenes. And so,
did I hear it right that he was the talent scout for Shane, or was he the first backer of Shane?
No. I think that was. I know they said that the guy from BNEA was the first sponsor.
Yeah, right.
But Mike had said that he first met Shane at 9 years old, which is crazy because I think he was going to Green's mom at some tournament. But that's just how far back that he goes, And like, let me ask you this though: what's the most like iconic Efren photo that you remember, that you can think of off the top of your head?
That's a great question. I'm going to say my own. Actually, no, I'm not going to say my own. I took a picture with him, and he was absolutely miserable, and that's my most iconic photo. I'll share it with you privately, but it's so funny.
Well, for me, it was the Reds photo that you see as Cesar Morales wins that Houston tournament all those years ago. It's like the first one that we really got to get an introduction to who the GOAT was. And it's funny because we were doing some stuff and bouncing around some ideas for 1PKT, and I was talking with my business partner, and I said, man, I'd love to do something with that silhouette of Efren, from that photo, because when I think about Efren, I think about Cesar Morales, and he's got the cue in his hand, and there's all these guys in a smoky pool room behind him. And so I don't know how it came up in conversation, but somehow or another, I was discussing it with Mike, and he says, yeah, you should totally do that. And I said, but I don't know whose picture that is the problem. He said, oh, I took that photo. That was me. And I was like, what? How did I never know that after all these years? But that's just like Mike's had a footprint in this industry for so long. little things like that have just, he's been a part of that fabric, and he's very much a part of the heart and soul pull. And so, like I said, congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Mark Griffin as well. Really well deserved. I got to hear a lot about Mark. I met Mark a few times, but one of them was right before he had passed away, maybe like 3 months before, when we had gotten a chance. I think we did at the event in Bally's. Mark was one of our sponsors, and they let us do like a post game thing out there at Griff's, and we got to have a good conversation with Mark. And even though like he knew his time was coming, he was still doing things in the background to make sure that the players were going to be taken care of long after he was gone, and the venue was going to be, the bar was going to be well taken care of as well. And that's just like a part of who he was. It was a great speech by Ozzy, accepted on his behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought Shane would outlast both of those guys with the speech game.
No kidding, right?
It was really nice hearing Ozzy, speak about him, posthumously and in such a good light. And again, Mark Griffin was another guy that I really didn't know just how deep the roots went within the billiards industry.
Yeah,
and we probably have a lot of things because of him. How much he invested in Diamond,
for sure.
Invested in things that were going under. And that's the sign of a true businessman and a true investor, is someone that's able to pick something up when it looks like it's on its last legs.
Well, not just that, but I mean, look, it's I'm sure it was a tough return during many of those, during that aspect as well, and during that time. And so I think it's just a credit to his love and his passion for it, and what he believed in, and what he was able to kind of bring to the table. And I mean, look, Ozzy said it best as far as like the butterfly effect. It's like you never know just how far down the road that your impact will go on things within the industry or in life. And Mark's presence is certainly felt today. I mean, even down to the diamond tables that are out there by the bar here at the venue, So big congratulations to Mark. It was great seeing him get inducted. And then, of course, the main event was SVB, the modern GOAT, if you will. Give me your thoughts, not just on the length, but like overall, how was Shane's speech?
Well, we all know that Shane's not much of a talker,
No.
When you get him off the table, when he's had a couple of drinks, he's very calm and relaxed, but he's always very nervous about how he comes across. I'm pretty sure. And after the first 22 minutes, he really settled into it. It was kind of like, oh, I'm feeling it now.
Yeah.
He was getting the round of applause that he deserved, and some of his stories were just incredible too. And you look.
He had some real good gems in there for sure, and his delivery was a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. Now his public speaking experience is little to none, and you see that whenever he does interviews and stuff. But like he took a lot of pride and thought into that. You can just tell by how long that speech was. I had no idea it was going to be like that, Dell. Not at all.
But anyone that hasn't met him on camera, he's very professional, very you see he's very serious. He's very competitive in the moment. But he's such a personable character, and he's actually got quite a bit of comedic timing behind him too.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was on purpose.
Once he opens up and he warms up to you, like he can be a smart ass, he can crack some jokes, he can give you the business as well. He's got a ton of personality, but it's just like he's also an introvert, by nature. So but he's like you said, he's also professional. So it's like when everything's on, he'll take the photo, he'll sign the autograph or whatever. But yeah, no, it was super cool seeing him get it.
Because you see that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say about just to cross over to the press conference real quick. He didn't say a word at the press conference. I don't know if he was saving up for his speech,
Yeah. But that's Shane, though, in a nutshell. And like you've only gotten those short spurts of him throughout like the course of his career, where like if you ask him a question, he'll answer it for you. But that's it. Like he's not going to go like on and on with it. He's just going to take it for what it is. And that's just part of who he is. And that's part of his charm and why we can appreciate him. But that was also what made like his speech that great, was because you really knew that he was opening up and telling some stuff that not a lot of people have heard before. And just how far back, and just more importantly, how much love he has for the game as well.
Do you know how, what was interesting for me is that Pinozo put him in the top 5. He said, remember when he said
when he introduced him,
me and you would put him as the GOAT, right? So we'd put him as number 1.
I'd probably put him as number 2. I still put Efren before, but I'd probably put
He said
him at number
internationally.
2.
He said, and this is how much respect Penozo's got for the American players, is, you know, without them we wouldn't have any of this today. So that's something that's right there to remember. But he said Shane is one of the top 5, and he didn't say where in the top 5 he was. He just said Shane's one of the top 5 players from America of all time, and probably one of the best in the world, right? So I was interested that Mike put a number on that, and I was like, wow, who are his other 4? You know, who's the other 4 that really stand out?
He's seen it all. He's seen it all. He's
That's what I'm
seen,
saying.
you know, so many generations of players come through and so many greats, whether it's on the male or female side. But like, listen, I love to give him shit, but like the buck kind of does stop with him because he's been doing it so long, you know? So like,
Yeah.
you know what? I might put him up to that, or maybe if you get a phone on
Yeah.
him, put a camera on him and grill him.
Yeah.
Let's get the actual number in order. Don't let him slide away. Put some heat on him and let's get the actual order and where each player is at. Along with that, Dell, did you get to make it out to the press conference by chance?
I did. Yeah, I was kind of floating around in the background. As you know, I'm here doing some content for Billiard Sports Network and obviously the podcast, Talking English. You guys can find that on YouTube. That's something else. Shameless plug, Mike. I'm sorry.
No. We'll post the link on Windows Open as well. It's a lot of great stuff that you guys are doing for sure.
And what we're focused on really is the industry. So the industry as a whole, you know, the people that really make Paul tick behind the scenes. You know, why do people take a career in commentary? Why do people become the referees? Without these people, you know, the game we all love and see would not exist. And yourself and, you know, some other podcasters in and around the world do a great job with the players and giving you up-to-date breaking news. Mine's more about the post-edit. It's more about, you know, behind the scenes with my partner, Josh Setterfield, who's been running Billiard Sports Network for a really long time.
He does a great job.
And, you know, we try and bring something that's, you know, a slightly different angle. So you'll see me popping around. I'd love to do an interview with yourself, Mike, and maybe we could release that.
I'm gonna tell you, if y'all are in the venue, you ain't gonna miss Dell. Just look up and you'll see him. It don't matter where he's at. As long as you look up, you're gonna spot Dell for sure.
As long as you look up, look for the glasses, you'll see me right there in the stand.
I love it, man. I love it. Showing your patriotism right away. No, look, I thought that press conference was pretty spicy. Unlike years past, because there were plenty of times before where I felt like these little tiffs and guys kind of, you know, needling each other was a bit fabricated and it's outside of their comfort zone. And it was a little bit awkward at times in years past. This time felt, excuse me, a lot more natural. I've never, just like I ain't heard Shane say so many words over the course of his career like he did during that speech. I ain't heard Kachi speak that much over the course of his career neither. He had quite a bit to say along with a possible matchup with him versus Federer. And I'm curious if that does happen, who do you like playing WNT matchroom rules?
Ooh. I have to agree with you there in the press conference, and I lost my train of thought a little bit. But Kachi, you got to remember that man nearly lost his life. And I think he's come back almost larger than life, and he's going to take everything. You know, I've always loved his character and his demeanor because he's one of these that doesn't need to be in the game all the time to be well known. He's like, yeah. I'll take one tournament a month. That's all I need. You know, and
he said as much.
He's so confident in his own ability, and with Jason in front of him, I think that gives him energy as well. Honestly, Jason's such a leader and a vocal person that it gives the other people, you know, like Kachi, because let's be honest, Mickey, FSR, and Al-Qaedi, they're not going to speak out of turn, although they're quite funny in their own right when they do make these one-liner comments, which are, you know, a little bit of needle, like you said. But again, Skyler was holding Team USA down for everything. He even turned around to his teammates and said, "Am I the only one talking here?"
Yeah, but that's what you expect. Yeah, as the leader, and it very much was like captain focused to some extent. But I was surprised to see Kachi take on that role personally. I thought the banter was great between everyone. You can tell they really want it. I got a chance to speak with a couple of the captains ahead of time, and there was a big difference as far as their approach and the way that they were coming into the event. I don't know if you guys were able to catch it or not, but you guys can check out the videos on YouTube. One of them I was able to post live on Facebook, but the other one with Jason, I had to upload it to YouTube, so you guys can check that out as well. But Sky has that real laid back attitude when it comes to just his game in general. He's not known as a big workhorse per se, as far as like practice regimen and things like that. But when I spoke with them, Dell, I was real surprised. He pretty much, it seemed like anyway, that everything he was doing was like, real team oriented in the sense of like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Hey, let's all make a decision as a team. Where Jay was just like, I told the guys they're not playing the straight pool. We're going to get together. We're going to do this and that. And just, he's ready to go out there and handle business. And I kind of like it. I like seeing the Europeans take a lot of pride in this match, especially considering how little they did going into the Reyes Cup.
I think we pay a lot to kind of former captains, that really embedded that. And you look at the amount of players like Shane, Sky, Jason, maybe Catchy to a degree. They've all played under these, Johan Roisching, and the ability to bring a team together. And I think that's what Johan did among all others, and why he was so successful was that he was able to create camaraderie and team effort. And if the person to the right of me is failing, I'm going to step up my game to make sure that guy on my right is going to be looked after, and I'm going to come back with a bigger win. And I don't think in certain years USA has had that. Johan, when he did go to Team USA, you saw the camaraderie that he put into the team. They went out and trained with the Navy SEALs and all this type of like things that I don't think you would expect from someone like Skylar. But again, I think it leads into his fifth wildcard pick, or his fifth man wildcard pick with Billy, because he sees that teamwork and that camaraderie is more important than perhaps someone that's traveled the world. You know what I mean? Not to kind of go too deep into that, but and Jason is always going to lead into the fun element of it because he knows they're all world-class players and that they can perform on any given day. So why do we need to drill 24 hours a day?
Well, honestly, I think it's a little bit of the opposite for me, Del, because Jason was kind of taking that like, hey, we're in here 8-9 hours a day, every day. We're working our asses off. He didn't like to lose. He didn't like what happened out there in Manila. Listen, as much as I'm going to listen to you, the buck does stop with me. You're not going to be playing this. We're going to be training. We're going to be putting in the work because, we want to win. We want to make sure we pick up that 40,000 before Christmas time, without a doubt. But like with Sky, it just seemed like it was just a little relaxed, a little chill. And I don't know, like you got guys who are used to being workhorses in Shane, and Shane will always do his own thing no matter what. You're like, you're never going to get to kind of corral him in the sense of like doing things like everyone else. And I feel like that's maybe where Johan and Shane kind of had a little bit of issue, because Johan didn't care, what your name was or what your resume was. You were going to put in the work like everyone else. And I feel like the Europeans very much have that mentality, where it's just like, hey, we know what we got to do. And the four guys in there, they know what they got to do. Mickey Dutton, but he's learning this year with the likes of David and Jay in there.
Out of everyone, Mickey, I think, is working the hardest, honestly.
Agreed, yeah. Especially leading up to the event.
Yeah, and I'm lucky enough that he comes through New York quite often, so I get to see his game, I get to spar, and I get to see exactly what he's working on. But when all the lights go down, he's the one that's still working. Everyone was at the bar yesterday. He was still working till 11 p.m. He was kind of like making sure that he had everything down. And for someone that's that regimen, you don't really see it come out necessarily in his game. And I mean that in the sense that he plays with such a nice rhythm. He kind of just gets down, sees the ball, makes the ball. He's not someone that sits there and chalks a cue for 5 minutes, and looks around at every single angle. And I think that someone that is that disciplined on the practice table that can bring a natural game, I think makes him so dangerous. I think really is the one to watch this cup.
Well, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him just from the standpoint of being the rookie, but he earned it with his own merit and his work ethic, like you said. And more importantly, listen, you can put in all the hours you want, but if you don't got the talent and the opportunity and just that raw desire and sacrifice, you're never going to get to where he's at. And he earned it this year. I love his temperament. I love the way he plays the game. It's super easy on the eye. part of like what makes certain guys great also drives me crazy because it's like they'll get down, look at the line, they'll get down, look at the line, they'll get down, look, Kachi pump fakes like all the time as well. But with Mickey, you're not going to have any shot clock issues. He's going to have a great pace. The crowd is definitely going to be a factor for him, especially if he starts dogging, one or two balls. But I think he's got the serenity to like just calm himself, take deep breaths, focus on his mental game along with that. And you saw that during big finals that he was in throughout the year. It's hard to make that team. It's hard to make it as a rookie. He earned it, but he's going to have to come with a couple of big points this
Definitely.
year, and it's going to start with the first singles. Let's jump on into the matchups, Dell, and we'll kind of go through. Let's start with the team matchup, Team USA versus Team Europe. You guys can check it out on Matchroom Pool. Let me change this view here. For the lineups, you guys can also check out Windows Open as well. Team USA versus Team Europe. I don't know the order in which the players are going to be out there, but let's talk about match number one, who you give the edge to and who you like.
Match number one is going to be everything. And it really is the kind of calming effect that kind of gets every player used to the arena. As we know, is it 3,500 or 2,500 for this arena?
I think right a hair over 25 or right around 2,500.
25. So it is the largest arena that they've had to play in front of.
Right.
I think everyone, maybe bar Mickey, has played in front of in front of a crowd that big. So I'm leaning Team Europe just based on experience, and I think Jason will lead from the front. And I think they might go in the order of the picks. What do you think? They think they go 1 through 5, maybe, and that'll be the order. Or are they allowed to mix it?
Yeah, they can mix it up. I don't know how they're going to position guys. I feel like it is more important for the Americans as far as where you have guys placed because I want monsters to fade in case there's an issue on the back end of that match. And you don't want to overthink match number one neither. You know what I mean? But I want to make sure that there's opportunity for guys to get their wheels greased and just optimize their position based off of who their potential opponent's going to be. But with the Europeans and Jay, he may put himself out first, which is fine because he's always been that guy in front of the pack. But like you, I like the Europeans in match number one. My only concern is that I checked out the venue, the ceiling. It looks great, by the way. It looks absolutely beautiful. You guys are going to really enjoy it. But that ceiling is kind of low, and what I feel like that'll bring is just an intensity with the sound and the crowd and the roar.
Really
I remember being at Bally's and just feeling the stadium kind of rumble. I expected it to be that type of vibe, and how much of an effect is that going to have on a guy like Mickey, on a guy like Tyler, who can feel the heat at times, even a guy like Federer, who really doesn't have a ton of experience playing in front of a crowd. I'm curious to see how that's going to weigh itself out, but you're going to jump on in and it's going to be the first matchup. It's going to be loud. It's going to be intense. Fans are just thoroughly excited for it. But like you, I kind of like the Europeans in match number one.
Did you make a good point there about the environment? Did you ever get yourself to York Hall in London?
No, never. The Asia trip was my first time going overseas. I never got my passport until this year. Yeah, yeah.
Let me tell you about York Hall for a second. And for those fans out there that experienced it as well, it used to be a well-known boxing. It was a well-known kind of boxing venue, and it was two-tiered. So you had upstairs and downstairs, and everything was looking down, centralized on the table. And it was such a small arena compared to what you see now that when the fans cheered, it felt like the balls moved. It was that close because the floor would rumble. And you just mentioned something there, and they said that if you mentioned to a couple of the older players what the environment was most intimidating, it was that. And I wonder if we've gone back to a more compact, lower ceiling. And the European fans are going to be in voice, but I think we're going to have a lot more USA, chants coming back the way, which leads us nicely on to the second match as well.
On the note of the fans, though, look, I feel like it's a double-edged sword, right? It can put a lot of pressure on guys. It can fire you up, depending on how you want to look at it. But if you're the Europeans, you can also rip the heart out of them. You know what I mean? And so I don't want like a day 3, we're gonna chug beers when we're down by 7 points. You know what I mean? I want to see this type of like fire from them early and often. But for the Europeans, like I said, you can really start off your run here in match number one. but you're on home soil for the Americans. You know, if you're looking from like a top player standpoint, you got to figure they had the two best players out of the 10 in Federer and Shane, along with the guy who's been a multiple time MVP in Sky. So you can make an argument on the other side of it, but I'm going with proven results up until this point. But on the note of guys who have a lot to prove, match number 2, first, is it the first singles? Right? Oh, I'm sorry, doubles. Sky Billy versus Alcade and Shaw. Give me your thoughts on that doubles matchup for the second round.
We'll start off with this one, mate. I think this is my choice.
There you go. Put the overalls on while you're at it.
There we go. Now, I've kind of over the past year, I've a real soft spot for Sky. Seeing him, personally off the table and some other bits and pieces, and you see where his heart's at. And going back to an earlier point actually about Sky, is that really he's an introvert, right? So he wouldn't be a natural pick for someone that you would lead a team. But if you've noticed, his social media's picked up. I think he's starting to kind of come into the role of a leader, role of a captain, and try and bring that team around him. So yes, he's junior in that piece, but I do think that he's embracing it and he's trying to push forward with it. And again, he'll be trying to carry Billy through this. And what I love about Billy and what he said yesterday, he's kind of accepting. He knows the fact that he's not the straightest shooter. So I think he's really leaning into that, which is going to take the pressure off of him. Because where he's missed balls in the past and there's been a big ooh, from the crowd, and that's probably affected him. I don't think it'll affect him as much now because he knows he has a great all-round game and the ability to deal with that immense pressure from the crowd. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. I mean, like from an emotional standpoint, they can fade it one way or the other. Sky is going to pretty much look the same whether he's up 3-0 or down 3-0, and that's part of what I absolutely treasure about his game, because he is that type of player, and it serves him well whenever it's time to battle, and then you got a guy like Billy who's known to be a grinder, like you mentioned in the press conference, has a ton of heart. So that can bode well for you on either side of the score line in that particular matchup. My only concern, though, in this matchup is we know it's short race 9-ball, it's alternate break. If I'm ranking the Americans based off of the break skill set, I'd probably put Sky and Billy on the bottom end of it. I'd put Federer, I'd put Tyler, I'd put Shane on the top half of it when it comes to the break, where Sky and Billy, I feel like, have a lot of question marks in that regard. When I spoke to Sky, he mentioned that they've been working on it quite a bit, but at the same time, they've had all year to kind of work on it as well. I know what I'm going to get from David, a real finesse break, borderline soft, and Shaw, we know what kind of monster that he can be with the break. I feel like they got a great chemistry together. Both teams do. But short race 9-ball, Dell, that break is going to weigh in. But it can teeter either way, right? Because if the break's in liability and you're down 1-0, how is that going to be? But on the same time, if you're up 1-0 and you're fired up and everything, the ball goes your way, who knows? You know what I mean? You can get that crowd going early and often and right away.
Hell yeah. I mean, fellow countryman, Shaw's been my favorite player, for all time. Since I picked up, an American pool cue in 2012, Shaw's really been at the forefront for me. And seeing him go to where he is now is incredible. So there's nothing against my personal feeling on Shaw, but I do think that team, Sky and Billy, they've picked that to get the crowd on their side early. And I think this one will put pressure on. So is it the strongest pairing to put out first? Absolutely not. But is it the smartest in terms of, creating the atmosphere that USA want to create? Their home soil, they've got the teams, they've got the crowd support. Europe have traveled in big numbers, though. They have a firm following, which is
they got some diehards like Sean and the boys,
Yeah, and they all follow these guys. They all follow them to a lot of different tournaments around Europe as well. So I think that's going to be a really interesting match. But
look,
I think this guy and Billy are legit.
I think it's going to be that Molotov cocktail that you're looking for the Americans, and you get the chance to kind of light the place on fire with the emotion, with the energy, and just kind of get the party started. It's going to transition over into, for me, a bit more of a flatter match. You know what I mean? Guys with not a ton of personality, not a lot of big flashes in their game. It's an interesting spot to have Tyler go out there, but I love the position of putting Mickey out there, because you pretty much put him in this free position to really not have any pressure, because worst case scenario, you're only down 2-0 going to 11, right? But like, for all intents purposes, it's a free roll, and you get that singles right out of the way early on with the guy who's going to have the most question marks in Mickey.
For me, the singles, I always look forward to the first singles match. I don't know about anyone else, but for me, when the singles starts, that's when the Mosconi starts, because you really do get to see that intense one-on-one pressure, and you don't have anyone else to lean on or look around for support. It's just you and the other guy. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. Putting these two guys out early will set the tone for either team. And I think if you nick a point here and there, and again, we've always talked about the format race to 5, anyone could nick it. But I think Tyler and Mickey are pretty evenly matched, in terms of the way that they approach the game. I think they have very similar styles. Maybe Tyler's probably a little bit more methodical, a little bit more mechanic, and with Mickey being a bit more natural, I'd say. I tend to lean on the natural player.
That can be a double-edged sword, though, Dell. Being so process-oriented.
I know. I think he handles the pressure better, Mickey. I think the Viking nickname, fits so well, because he's just like this cool, calm, collected customer that really doesn't get frustrated or annoyed at himself, and just comes back with an absolutely unbelievable shot to get himself back.
Tyler can wear it a little bit, and the crowd can give it to him. They know how to get under his skin, do those seasoned European fans, but at the same time, he's not that same kid from Wisconsin who came out of the blue with the Johan pick with a lot of scrutiny. He's developed and matured into a well-rounded player, especially on this stage, I feel like, and very undervalued and just underrated when it comes to what he can bring to that team. And not just from a maturity standpoint, but I could probably make a case that he's probably number 2 or number 3 when it comes to the break as well. So with Tyler, that maturity paired with the break, it could be a perfect spot for him heading into this match with Mickey.
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the seasoning. He's definitely got some salt and pepper under it. He's the guy has really matured into his role today, and I think he takes it. He acts like a professional, which is incredible.
100% he does.
It's difficult to do in this environment because we're so close to the fans, or the fans are so close to the players, and it's like we've said it before. There's nowhere else you could rub shoulders. But I do think that when he's in practice mode, he's very disciplined. When he's in match mode, again, he's very disciplined. But as you mentioned, I suffer from this too. When you get a little bit heated and a little bit pressured, my cheeks, they go all red, and you can see when he gets flustered.
Well, you can just like you can see Dell in the crowd, you can see Tyler turning red in the crowd with the same with the same hand, And look, Tyler earned his way onto that team, but at the same time, a lot of times if you watch Tyler in these American regional tournaments, he's got the ears on, he's got the headphones in. You're not gonna be afforded that opportunity with that crowd and that volume that's going to be in there. And so is that going to play versus what he used to? There's no way to go and train for it because there's no other tournament that's like it. Maybe Hanoi to some extent can get a little rowdy in a great way. But if you go out of your way to wear headphones, a lot of times, you got to make sure that heart rate stays the same whenever you're out there and competing on this stage as well. I like Tyler in this matchup. It is close. But I feel like that break and that experience is going to serve him well. I don't know if we picked him match number 2, but I'm picking Tyler on match number 3.
So I've gone USA, Europe so far, and you have?
I'm going Europe, USA through 3 matches. So 2-1 right now through 3. We got 5 altogether. Up next, you got the two-headed monster SVB and Federer versus Ruiz and Kachi. I love this matchup for both teams. Give me your thoughts on the Hall of Famer and the future Hall of Famer pairing up together in Van Boening and Gorst.
You could give Gorst a green jacket tomorrow, and I don't think anyone would complain, right?
No. He's already on it.
I think he's already cemented himself, and I think he's done that in many, many different ways. And we've chatted about this a lot, but I think that Federer, for me, has built himself into the consummate professional sportsman of pool, and also as the role model for future generations to follow. Just like we had Shane and we had some other players, and great players that kind of push the boundaries. I think he's now pushed the boundary into the modern era for me. And I got a ton of respect for Fedor and what he's been doing. But let's not forget, the guy just did the three-peat. You know, he's I can't remember who asked the question at the press conference, but they said, "Is it on your mind at all that you could have the most successful year of any player ever by also winning the Mosconi Cup with USA this year?"
Relax, though. Relax. All right, buddy. Let me introduce you to a guy named FSR who's on the other side of that. All right. And the resume that he had, he won the U.S. Open as well. He won the World Pool Championship. He won the World 8-Ball. He's pump the brakes a little bit. I know that there's a lot of talk about a Gore slam, but FSR was a bad MF. You know what I mean? Like, he was a bad dude.
Not to say that they aren't outmatched. They're not outmatched at all. This is a very even match between Kachi Ruiz. You're absolutely right. But when you look at that firepower of Gorst, Van Boening, I mean, is there any better pairing?
Look, I think that Federer will kind of try to get the crowd involved, whereas the other two Europeans and Ruiz and Kachi are a little bit more subdued and relaxed. They're not the Jason, they're not filler. You know what I mean? Like, if they're animated, it's like they're trying to be animated, because it's just not in their nature. And that's part of what we can appreciate, or depending on who you are, criticize about their game. You know what I mean? When it comes to the off the table antics. And Shane, Shane is Shane. He was drinking a little bit of wine last night. He was feeling himself. I don't know what time he went to bed, and so he's going to be kind of cold through a couple matches coming into match number 4. But look, they obviously know each other's game. They were teammates last year. I believe they might have had a win last year, if I'm not mistaken. Did that doubles pairing in Federer and Shane. But like, in a lot of aspects, you probably think that that's Team USA's best doubles partner, at least on paper. Maybe not from a chemistry standpoint, but from a resume standpoint, you can't argue it. But like I said, I love Ruiz's break. Kachi's a big question mark, a huge question mark coming into the tournament. Leaving Manila, he was a big question mark, and he's going to end day one answering a lot of those questions. And yesterday, whenever I spoke with Jay, Kachi was a big talking point, and I asked him, I said, what was going on and all that. And he said, listen, Kachi really didn't play a whole lot leading into Manila. His training just wasn't there. And he's been known to kind of have, like, not the greatest work ethic at times, but he had a lot of ownership and responsibility when it comes to that score line out there in Manila. And I heard he's been putting in the work and putting in the hours. He lost a little bit of weight, like Jay said during our interview. But more importantly, he's put in that table time. And Jay said he's dialed in. And Jason, like more than a lot of players, Jason's not afraid to call a spade a spade. He's not afraid to tell it like it is. He'll tell the line sometimes, but for the most part, like, you get a pretty genuine response from him. And so what he said about Kachi, I believe him. And if Kachi is who he was in June, he's going to be a handful for the Americans and maybe a handful for the end of day one out here at the Mosconi Cup, Dell.
Yeah, super interesting. I think you make a really good point about Kachi. How match fit, how match ready do you think he really is? But he's really cemented himself into one of my favorite top 5 players already, just by his demeanor, just by his ability. I feel like he plays better if he's playing quickly. So I feel like he plays better under the shot clock, honestly.
He's picked it up a little bit. There was a lot of question marks before in years past, but he stepped it up in that regard for sure.
And FSR, I think, will even him up or give him some tempo. There's a reason they call him El Ferrari, and he really does tick. He's got a good engine on him. And I think that he'll bring firepower to it.
Here's my thing with this matchup, right? You got a guy who's been over there for 18 years now in Shane, right? Federer, we know he don't have a ton of Mosconi experience, but he's Federer fucking Gorst, right? He won the World Pool Championship. He won the U.S. Open. He won the World Pool Masters. He hasn't delivered on this stage, but you would bet your money that he's going to deliver this year, right? You'd bet your money on any tournament that he's going to deliver because that's the kind of player that he is. But with Ruiz and Kachi, look, Ruiz is still a little wet behind the ears when it comes to being on the European team, and Kachi, he ain't played in a few years either. I know he had that runner-up in the World Championships, but we haven't seen him on this stage. So how is that adrenaline going to work for him? He didn't have the best showing in Hanoi. Didn't have the best showing in Manila.
there is no adrenaline with Kachi. He is an absolute beast.
Look,
You just
man, let me hook up a heart monitor to him. I don't care who you are. If you got a heartbeat and you're out there competing, I've talked to a lot of big time players. I mean, like Josh and Jason, and I mean, just killers. You know what I mean? Guys who just thrive under that environment. And they say they just feel it, man.
A Jeep rolled over on top of him and he walked away, dude. I call him Drago because he's just the Rocky IV reference. Ivan Drago.
Yeah, for sure.
If he dies, he dies.
Let's hear it again. Say it again. Yeah.
You will lose. I can just imagine him and it is still the America-Russia thing, obviously not Europe, but it's for me, he's got that kind of that presence of an Ivan Drago, where he's so tall and domineering and such a force to kind of sit there. I don't think he has an adrenaline response. I don't. I think there's certain players that just don't have it, and I'd like to put a heart monitor on him. I reckon it doesn't beat above 60.
I'd be curious, and I'd love for Matchroom to do that, by the way. I think it'd be a fun thing to kind of view.
It would be good.
Yeah.
But
I know I've seen it in a tournament before.
Number four, USA.
Well, look, I think it's interesting. I love the strategy of having Kachi play back-to-back, let his wheels get greased. If there's question marks, get him out of the way early on when the pressure may not be too much. You know what I mean? Because he was a question mark leaving Manila. I'm surprised to see Sky on the back end of it. Now, I love Sky, and I know he's super clutch, and I know he's dependable. I don't know how much that captain's role is going to affect him in this matchup, but I would have loved, just like seeing the Europeans, I would have loved to have seen Federer or Shane follow up, be comfortable, have a back-to-back, you know what I mean, as far as one match versus the other. But Sky, listen, there can be a lot of pressure on match number 5. There for sure will be a lot of pressure on Kachi. It's a great matchup to end day number 1, Dell.
I'm keeping the glasses on, mate. That's 3 votes for USA against 2 for Europe. I do think Sky's done this on purpose. And again, I think he's taking the weight of the team to close out day 1, because let's say if this is close, and I hope it stays close, by the way. I hope we get all the way
so, man. I can't fade a steamroll.
Yeah, I couldn't do another steamroll, and it would lose some confidence for me in the cup and its format. But I do think with this, we really need to see it go close. And Woodward putting himself out there, I think it's a great move, not only as the captain but as the leader as well of the rest of the team, and saying I'm going to take this anchor leg and I'm going to bring it. I'm going to get that point if we really need that point, or I'm going to take Kachi all the way to Hill. You know what I mean?
Well, he is big time, and he has proven himself as a winner and a guy you can rely on for that team, no matter whose name on it. I don't give a shit if you got Federer on that team, if you got Shane on that team. If you want to get me a big clutch point, if I'm an American fan, listen, give me the guy from Kentucky, because I'm going with proven results, not what I think can happen or should happen. I'm going with guys that I know can deliver, and Sky's a guy who can deliver with the likes of Josh. But it is an interesting position for him. I like him kind of taking that role on to some extent, but I like the momentum of being able to ride a guy back to back and just letting him feel comfortable, let him have that table time under his belt as well, And so that would be my only question mark. I think through 4 matches, I'm going to bring it back up right now. I think through 4 matches, I got Europeans winning 2-2. I'm sorry, winning the first 2. I got the Americans winning matches 3 and 4. I'm going with Gorst and Van Boning over Reese and Kachi, but I'm picking the guy from Albania to close out day number 1. I'm picking the Europeans to have a lead ending day number 1 in 3-2. But I tell you what, though, I've been there in years past. I'll never forget one time I was talking with Laylee there at Bally's, and they were down. I think it was after day 1 or something, or maybe it was after day 2. But I was asking him, hey, is there any nerves or pressure, blah, blah, blah. And he says, let me ask you this. If you were down, whatever it was, like 5-2 going to 11, would you be nervous? And I was like, well, when you put it like that, it sounds a lot different. You know what I mean? But that's how they're wired. That's how those Europeans are wired. That's how those guys who are wearing the blue and yellow feel it, and that pressure or that energy you can get from being at home, it can be a catch-22, for a lot of these guys. And it's got that potential because now you got the weight of the world and of your fans and your family sitting there with you. But look, it's Kachi can deliver in a big spot, especially if his game is on point. I don't if the guys are behind, I'm still going to take the Europeans with more chance to come back just because I've seen it before, you know. But if
Yeah.
you're the Americans, look, you got to deliver some punches to those boys. You got to deliver over and over and over again because missed opportunities in short race 9-ball, Dell, that's everything, man. You know that.
We haven't even talked about table conditions, mate. I don't think I've even looked at the table yet. Have you?
Well, I know I spoke with Jason about it, and he had a lot to say about the table and how different it was compared to
All right.
Manila. He talked about the extended rails and how much he felt like that was going to favor those Europeans as well, Dell. And he
Yeah.
made a mention of a player like a Billy or a Tyler who, you know, maybe can feel the heat under the pressure and how much that's going to affect them when it comes to a table playing tighter, you know. So I really feel like when it comes to an edge standpoint, Dell, I like the Europeans when it comes to having a 4-inch pocket.
That extended rail, and perhaps you could talk a little bit about that for people that don't know what that is. I mean, if there's anyone that's got any doubt, the extended rail is so much more difficult than the shim pocket, in my opinion. And I say
Yeah,
that because
that's what Jay said as well.
the points are so much fire. You know, if you hit any point on that extended rail, it's going to spit the ball.
Yeah,
And the reason I think Europe definitely favors that is because they are more accurate. They shoot for the center of the hole. You know, and Americans play the game the way they should, the way, in my opinion, the way it should be played. They're aiming for the meat of the pocket each time, and you're trying to cheat the pocket a little. I think American pool has some of its beauty from its ability to be able to cheat the pocket and be able to create an angle from nothing. You know, whereas snooker is very much, you know, the rounded pocket is
that's part of the art and the beauty of it, Dell.
exactly. And I think that, you know, if we have this extended rail, it's going to be interesting to see how much spits out and how much of the, you know, the flair. And some of my favorite players like Earl Strickland could really just, and Nick Varner especially, could float the ball around the table, you know, with consummate ease because they were able to cheat that pocket. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're losing
Well,
an
they,
element
they can
because,
open up with the pocket with the way that they hit that ball, you know, and that's something
yeah,
that you can just appreciate if you watch the way that it'll roll and be accepting into it. And listen, they're great at it. The Americans have been great at it for years. I like Jay, I do feel like that tighter pocket will favor those Europeans. But I'll tell you this, look, I didn't mention this yesterday or whenever we did any kind of content, but I was in both practice rooms, and there were some differences when it comes to the way that they were preparing. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just as far as how to try to make that practice table play like the TV table, and those Europeans were doing something a little different than the American
yeah,
players, you know,
yeah,
and that just shows that it was their experience. And I'm curious to see, you know, you got seasoning, you got experience, you got, you know, pride, you know, you got embarrassed recently and you want to go and deliver. They've been focusing really hard, training really hard. Call me crazy, Dell, and I know you know you're rocking the red, white, and blue, but I'm going with the Europeans in this Mosconi Cup. I'm going with the Europeans in day one, but I want to get your overall prediction as to who you think is going to win the Mosconi Cup.
um, you know, people often say like heart and head, you know, rule differently.
Yep.
You know, unfortunately, you know, heart and head has to be with Europe. You know, I've been in America now 10 years, and I really do feel the patriotism and the fan side of things. And I just want them to do well. I want it to be close. I want them to, you know, show the world or that they can compete at this level. And I think the introduction of Fedor, I think they've got a very well-rounded team. And I'm not getting any closer to my point of saying that, you know, I am going to go. I am going to go with Europe. You know, and I think that's just purely because they have the firepower. But that's not to say that I don't think USA aren't going to make it close. And I would love to see that team win. And from a journalistic standpoint, I'd love to see Europe lose two back to back. I don't know. What do you think? It's kind
Oh,
of
I
like,
agree from a storyline standpoint for sure. You know, look, I feel like the Americans need this kind of boost, and let's be real, they got the best opportunity they've had in years to win a Mosconi Cup. You know, no Josh, no Albin. I don't care who you are. That's a real deal. Those guys are pillars on that team, and it would be a very different team with them on it. But listen, you can pump your chest and for all the things you've done throughout the year. You know, SVB with the Hall of Fame, Federer and his accomplishments, Sky being the captain, Tyler and his consistency, Billy bringing the energy. But like, listen, you only chalk it up one way, right? Wins and losses. You got to go out there and win. The Europeans have shown that they can be vulnerable, but you got to execute. And like Jason said yesterday, listen, it's a whole different ball game when you got Carlo and Chua and Yap sitting across from you versus some of the American fans who aren't as decorated. And he's just keeping it real. I know it was a little disrespectful, but he's being honest, you know?
I said this to Sky, the very same thing in terms of, you have the best opportunity to kick them while they're down. And Jason would like to hear
and
that.
you better do it.
Better do it. That's what I'm saying. You better keep you better keep your boot on the throat and do it from very early on. And I even kind of joked that he should make Shane wear the green jacket out day one when they all walk out, because that kind of almost shows a little bit of superiority. You're trying to keep the boot on the neck, and say like, "Where's your green jacket, Team Europe?" You know what I mean?
Yep. No, for sure. Well, I mean, listen, there used to always be that joke of, we got 5 world champions on Team Europe. And now, well, listen, now you got a couple world champions on Team USA as well. You got arguably the 2 best players out of the 10-man roster. But listen, Shane hasn't delivered at points during his Mosconi Cup career, a lot of points during his Mosconi Cup career. You got guys who are dependable, but you got question marks on both sides, Dell. This is why, like, despite the fact that it was, 11-3 last year, I'm pumped for day one. It starts in an hour from now. You guys can check it out on DAZN. If you're here in the U.S., if you're anywhere else, I got no idea, but check it out on Matchroom. I'm sure you guys can find it. I'm pumped. I'm gonna head out to the venue right now, try to snag some pregame stuff with some of the fans and the players. Dell, it's a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, man.
Did you give me a score though? I think you might have dodged the actual score. Give me a score. Give me a score before I get you out of here.
Hill. I'm going Hill. 11-10 to Europe.
11-10 to Euro. I like it. All right. Big shout out to all of our sponsors who have helped supported the show coming out here in the page as well. We couldn't do it without them. And so we'll see you guys out at the venue. And we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, bro.